You might be wondering, how do you actually put a trust together? Well, my friends, we have already given you that recipe. But now that you have this trust, how do you work around it? What are the ins and the outs, the do's and the don'ts of a trust? Many of us, including myself, I bought a trust, or should I say I created, I became a founder, and for the longest time it was on my shelf. And I want to give you an example, my friends. Think of a trust. As you're creating a trust today, it is just the same way as you having a driver's license. If you get your driver's license today, number one, it means that you obviously need to continue practicing how to drive. Ne? Because if you continue how to practice how to drive, it basically means that what you have learned for you to become compliant to drive, you can be good at it. So which means that whenever we are creating the trust, there's also the do's and the don'ts in the trust. Now, I am not the right person to educate you on that. I have brought in our guest resident from a legal perspective. She is going to be walking with us on this journey of the ins and the outs of the trust. Obviously, we're not going to dive into a specific trust. We'll make sure that at least the high level of how to work around it, you can still be able to understand it. But the best way for you to actually understand it is for you to have your own trust and for you to actually practice in your own trust. Does it make sense? It's like trying to tell someone who's not married how to be married. Like it's just like you can't explain it, right? I mean, your mom, your aunt, they're all married. They told you, get a husband. This is what and now you're in it. Their recipes don't work because you're married to a TJ. Ne? So these recipes we're going to give you at a high level. You need to take it and then apply it into your own trust. And then within this trust here, you can be able to make it work. But for now, let's introduce our guest resident. Pateka, welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good, thanks. And how are you? And good afternoon.
Yeah, now they're watching it in the morning.
Oh, morning.
Okay, good. Right, awesome stuff. So let's go ahead, Pateka. We would like to talk today specifically around the ins and the outs of a trust.
Yes.
And I want to mention that, number one, we've got a family, Mr. and Mrs. Tabo, and they have now created their trust. Their trust, they've come to you, there's a deed, there's beneficiaries, there's trust, and now that thing is here. You did your part, you went to the High Court, and you created it, you gave it to them. Now this trust is there. What now?
Okay. So the trust is now registered.
Yes.
I would say as a founder, you've created it.
Yes.
And now the letter of authority has been issued.
What is that? This is the first time you are bringing in the letter of authority. What is a letter of authority?
So when you register a trust, you submit your documents at the master's office.
Right.
And the master of the High Court will then check your trustees. Going back to our previous video again, where we're mentioning that you need to make sure that you appoint the correct trustees. And then they will check your beneficiaries, and then they will check if everything is in order in terms of your trust deed as well.
Right.
So meaning, why are you creating this trust? That is why you cannot be, going back to the example we made on the previous video about Tabo, who's, let's say, unmarried, but he wants to be a trustee and have a second trustee, and that's it.
Sure.
So let's say Tabo then is a founder, trustee, and beneficiary.
Yeah.
Then there must be an independent trustee. So those are the things that the Master of the High Court is checking, that they are independent trusts, because as we mentioned earlier, you cannot contract between yourself. You cannot be the trustee, the founder, and the beneficiary and be the only trustee. So you need someone else. And then once the master is happy with all your papers, then the master issues what we call a letter of authority. Then that letter of authority, then it authorizes you. That is why, as a trustee appointed, you cannot transact or do anything in the trust until that letter of authority is issued. It's not like a company. A company, you can still act on behalf of a company to be formed, but on a trust you cannot. You have to wait until the letter of authority is issued. In that letter of authority, it will give you a trust IT number.
A trust who?
The trust IT number, which is your registration.
A trust ID number.
Yeah, I would say ID number, yes, or registration number. Let me just put it that way.
Okay.
Yeah, a trust.
Mine says IT.
It says IT, yeah, number.
T for Tomine, and then it's got a few numbers there.
Yes, and
I've always wondered, what is that?
So that is your registration number of a trust.
Okay.
Okay, so it gives you
at
that
our house, we then said it's an ID for the trust.
that is also correct.
Okay.
So the registration number of a trust, and also in that letter of authority, there's a list of who the trustees are.
Yes.
Now, so meaning when you come to me, you have bought a property using a trust as a vehicle. Either the trust was owning a property you are selling, or the trust is purchasing the property. First document I ask is the letter of authority.
Right.
Then I want to see, because on the letter of authority, I want to see the registration number of the trust. I want to see the correct name of the trust.
Hey,
and
the banks likes that one.
Yes, I know.
The letter of authority.
I know. So I also want to see who the trustees are. And then the second document I ask is the trust deed. Because in the trust deed, again, it does state that the minimum of trustees that must be appointed in the trust. It usually doesn't have a maximum. It has a minimum. So I just need to make sure that, now remember again, we're talking about the administrative part.
Yeah.
So when I want to check that, I want to check in terms of the trust deeds, whether these trustees that are mentioned in the letter of authority, they correspond with the names that are listed in the trust deed.
Right.
Because if there are any changes, again, that must be reported to the master, as the person who was appointed as a trustee, and you also undertook to inform the master of any changes at the time of your appointment. So if there are any changes, then it should state that, okay, there were changes. And then once I see, okay, everything corresponds, then the next document I ask or request is your resolution. In order for you to act on behalf of a trust, then you need to get a resolution from the fellow trustees that are appointing you to represent the trust.
Right. Again, that's a new word that you have brought in. What is a resolution? So
a resolution on each and every
decision making?
On each and every decision making, on each and every, I would say, anything that you want to do, act. I would say on each and every act you need to do on behalf of a trust. As trustees, if it's 2 trustees, they can all act together. But if it's like 5 trustees, then usually there's a resolution whereby all 5 of them, they sign, and then appointing one of you.
I almost feel like you want to sleep, you need to sign a resolution. You want to drink, you need to sign a resolution. You want to go out of the room, you want to sign a resolution. It's like everything needs to come with a resolution, which is the beauty, though, right?
It is, because you don't have that is why we have to check the letter of authority, whether it corresponds with your trust deed, because we just have to make sure that you are not acting in your own best interest. Remember, the whole thing about the trust, you are creating this. If you remember on the previous videos, I mentioned that you are creating a trust fund.
Yeah.
Which is not for your benefit as a trustee, unless you are the beneficiary as well. It is for the benefit of your beneficiaries. So it's important then to have those resolutions on anything that you are going to do on behalf of the trust.
Right.
Okay.
Amazing. I like that. Right. So now that we've got our
letter of authority,
our trust deed,
yes,
and now we've got the letter of authority, and now let's assume that I'm just opening up a bank account, right? And opening up a bank account, I need a resolution that says,
yes,
I'm authorized to. open a bank account.
Yes.
Right? And you know what I did on that one? I wrote a resolution and I said, all matters related to banking. Because I went to the bank, right? And I was opening up a bank account. And then we went to look for a bond. Then they said, but there is no resolution for opening up a account. I'm like, whoa. So I came back, I did my resolution, and I put a resolution in umbrella. But this is now something that I was now discovering in the management of the trust.
Okay.
And I also know my trustees that they're very busy people. So I don't want to be knocking on their door for every
little thing.
Yeah, we don't have pens, resolution for pens. Why can't I not just buy a box and then I keep the box?
Yes.
Because I'm a good custodian. Now, speaking to that, Pateka, now that you have all this documentation in place, what are some of the things that are, from a governance perspective, what is it that the law dictates for us to be doing and that we should be wary about, that you see a lot of people not doing or doing wrong?
You know what I could say, I'm just going to mention two important things.
Yeah.
Is you need to open a bank account for the trust.
You need to open a bank account?
Yes.
You
You need to open a bank account because sometimes when you register as a taxpayer, because you need to open a bank account, you need to register as a taxpayer as well. Because SARS now, what I've seen is there is a circular that came out last year from the master that we need to capture all the trust with their trustees and the beneficiaries.
What's the circular now?
So it's issued by the Department of Justice, whereby it says all trustees now are obligated to be able to capture it.
It's an instruction that came from above.
Yes. It's an instruction that came from above.
Yeah.
We are now required as trustees to capture the details of the trust, that is your trustees and your beneficiaries. So again, it tells me
I'm in trouble. One of my trustees is sharp, but the other one, it's just been there. So you're saying I should open a bank account?
So what I'm saying is it's important to have a bank account because you would not. I usually because I know most clients, they're asking me, but there's nothing that I'm doing in this trust.
Sure.
But then if the trust is going to be registered as a taxpayer,
okay.
so you still need to submit your zero returns, right?
Yes.
And then in submitting your zero returns, then you need to confirm, because remember, when you were being appointed as a trustee, you did mention in your acceptance that the bank account will be opened, you tick the box, this was going to be done, you tick the box. So that is why then when you have to submit your zero returns, then your accountant, because the accountant has to be, or auditor has to be appointed as well. So that auditor or accountant will be asking, do you have a bank account?
I think this is why lots of people don't go ahead with these beautiful things to protect their assets. They see all of this as lots of work.
They see all of it as a lot of work, but I must say that protecting your assets is the most important thing besides the administrative part of it.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, because the administrative part is just to ensure, because again, a lot of people, they have trusts and those trusts are just sitting in their drawers and doing nothing. So the question I always have from people is, then Pateka, what must I do with this trust? Why do I need to open a bank account for this trust?
But Pateka, you've just said this very sad thing there. You've been working for the last 40 years. Many people work for around about 40 years. And out of this, they get their pensions or whatever it is. And their houses in their personal names. Many people, their biggest investment is going to be their house. If they're not like us at the tribe, where we do proper investments. And now they die at 70, 80, and the entire estate moves on. 55% of that goes to the government in different tax brackets.
Yes.
And they have the trust in their drawer.
True.
That is so sad.
It is actually sad because, again, remember, whilst creating a trust, I think as a founder, it's so important to understand why you are creating this trust.
Right.
You don't just create because maybe you watched a certain video on it's important for you to understand from the videos, but again, it's important for you to take a decision knowing for a fact, when I'm creating this trust, this is what exactly what I'm going to do. Remember,
how about telling them, Pateka, just tell them the truth, take your life seriously.
Okay, so remember, a trust can be used as a vital one to own, to have assets registered. I wouldn't say to own assets, to have assets registered in the trust.
Yeah.
To hold shares in a company.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
To also be a beneficiary in your life cover.
Yes.
Because you can also do that instead of having to put it in your drawer there and doing nothing. At least have it as a beneficiary in your life cover. And also,
I also like that one. That's
you can also use it, for example, for like your movable properties, let me say. So not necessarily your house or your what, you can have your cars, you can have all your antiques, you can have them registered under the trust. Because what we are trying to do here, we are trying to create the wealth, in which wealth is not for your benefit, it's for the benefit of your beneficiaries. Because remember, we're not only saying that you need to create a trust so that you can preserve, you create a trust in order to protect and also to do your estate planning. So that should you then be remembered by Jesus, then at least you know that the beneficiaries that I mentioned there, they will be able to benefit. And also you won't have a situation where your assets will be freezed at the time of your death, because no one can be able to use it or use any bank account or anything because of that. And then also, whilst they are trying to wind up your estate, everything is on standstill. So it's very, very important just to make sure that you will put the estate planning element in it, so that you protect your children, you protect your family, and whoever else that you have appointed there as a beneficiary. So besides all of this, because I know a lot of people, they get turned down by the requirements of having a trust being registered as a taxpayer or having a bank account. And I know, again, a lot of people, they don't have a bank account opened because they feel like, why? But it is a requirement that there must be a bank account. So again, when it catches up, then you need to know that it must be done. And also, if you don't register it as a taxpayer, again, you need to remember that once that catches up, then you have to. So if, for example, because I know that SARS is also coming up, because he's saying that a lot of people are actually being...
they're hiding in the trust.
Yeah, exactly. But again, it's important to understand that you are not doing this, because I think that the reasoning for SARS to think that, you know what, there's some hidden agendas in this trust is because we don't have... the vision of creating a trust to further the business of benefiting your beneficiaries, because it's not for you, it's for the beneficiaries. Maybe that is why now there is this instruction or directive where we are being required to capture with the master service system who are the trustees, who are the beneficiaries of these trusts, so that they can see that there are no hidden agendas.
So I want to challenge you, my friends. I know most of you are very good at doing research, online research, and do very little. I want you to go and research most of the South African Jewish families that own many of the big businesses in South Africa, and see whether they are owned with a person or they are owned with trusts, right? The answer to that is, I know because I've done the research as well, and I hang out with a lot of Jewish family people. They, for generation, a lot of them are on their third, fourth generations. The monies have been kept in the same trusts. Many generations have come. By the age of 18, even 16, some kids starts getting an income for whatever.
Sure.
And by the time they get to Bar Mitzvah, 21 and whatnot, they get a portion of that money to go and start a business. But the obligation is that the money needs to come back to the trusts. There's just like so many things that they can do. And I can see, particularly, I can already see some people that are saying, yeah, but those are Jewish people, those are white people. But here's the thing. Somebody started the trust. a few years ago. It might be 10, it might be 20, it might be even 50 years ago. The point is someone started that trust, and that trust has gotten legs to where it is today. And me and you, you know, I never want to throw a race card when I'm talking about these finance things. But the reality is that a lot of us black people, it's either we don't have this knowledge, but we are also busy with other things that are not related to our financial intelligence, right? So it's great that you're here, but share this information with other people. Share it with your family members and so on, and then do a deep dive check-in to say, where am I? Do I have a trust? So if I'm to die today, what's going to happen? How best can I move some of my cash properties? So there's Pateka, she's here, speak to her, right? You don't say that you didn't have anybody to check in with. So I know you want to say something there, Pateka. I just want to say that I think today is one of those days I just want to be an uncle. I'm like, flip, just do something for the right thing for your next generation. Because we can't continue on this conversation of, you know, my father wasn't there. Yes, it's a fact. For me, my father wasn't there. But I am being there for my kids today. So why am I not creating a trust? Or by the way, fact, I have created a trust for my kids and my family. So it's now, I'm being a good custodian, and why are you not doing that? I don't know, like take your 15 grand, whatever amount it is to create a trust. I'm not saying it's 15 grand, I'm just giving a number. And start. Parega, you know, I'm a little bit, maybe you can.
I see being an uncle. What I wanted to say was, think about a will.
Yeah.
In a will, I had a will.
Right.
Before. And
before you died?
Before I decided to have a trust.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, before I decided to have a trust, I had a will. And in terms of my will, I then, from my 3 kids, I said, okay, the 3 of you, you are going to be benefiting.
In the trust?
Yeah, no, in my will, equally.
Right.
That is before the trust. I had a will, my 3 kids, all beneficiaries, benefiting equally in terms of my will. Okay. Now looking at it and getting the knowledge of the trust, then I decided, you know what? Instead of me having to give these ones some cash or some assets, and then they become theirs, those assets.
The bucket stops with them in terms of benefiting.
Exactly. Yeah. And then obviously because they are appointed in terms of the will, you are already affording them some entitlement to those assets.
Oh, come on.
Ne?
Yeah.
Now I look at the trust and I'm like, they can still benefit, but it's not going to be attached to their personal names.
I like
so
that.
Meaning they will benefit in my trust forever.
Yes.
Whilst they are still alive. So that is why the beauty of having a trust, for me, it's really something that each one needs to get an understanding or some form of education in order to make sure that they understand it. So now I'm having a trust. They are now the beneficiaries in my trust, and in my businesses, then I've got shares that are being owned by this trust. And as beneficiaries, everything that is in there is theirs. And should then I go to Jesus, then it means whatever is there, it's not going to be attached to their personal names.
Right.
It's theirs, but it's not attached to them. So it's not a situation where, I know in terms of a will, you can have a clause where you're saying, I'm excluding your husband or your wife in terms of your benefit.
Yeah.
But how sure are you? Because you are not there.
Sure.
So I can decide that, you know what, I love my husband so much, I'm just going to share this whole thing with him. You are not there. They can decide. Whereas in terms of this trust, because there's nothing that is attached to them in their personal capacities, but they still have the benefit. So the benefit is there. These trustees that I trusted, they will make sure that in their decision making, they are not just deciding to, reinvest and all of that. They are deciding on who is supposed to benefit, when and how.
Patrika, as we close, I want to ask you maybe a controversial question, right? People, I know my people, they're already thinking about this. So you got 3 boys. right? I've got a boy and a girl, right? So, you know, I've received a double blessing. I take and I get, right? I pay lobola and then I'm going to get some lobola, right? The good thing is that I've got a son, so we'll pay lobola and then we'll know how much to charge, right?
Yes.
So having said that, Pateka, I'm talking about relationships here of the next generation.
True.
In the will, you can exclude your
Yes.
in-laws, right? So my son, he gets married. He gets married to a Mambara girlfriend. You know, it always happens to this.
It does.
He comes from a good home. We've raised him well, but I don't know. And how do we guard, how does the trust guard that? Because if he goes and gets married into community of property, what's his is his, and what's he, and the other way around, is she now also entitled to my benefits that I have allocated to my son?
You know what? The nice thing about the trust is it also has that exclusion clause
Ah, I like that.
of the marriage. Yeah. So it does have a clause where the marriages are being excluded.
Okay.
But then again, you don't have control. But you know what is nice? When I say, again, let me explain this. When I say you don't have control, I mean, if I am that girl and
Yeah.
I love my husband, yes, it is there, it's going to be given to me. But what if I decide once I receive, I give it to my husband? That's the control that you don't have. But then when it comes to a trust, as trustees, you will see. Because the beauty of having a discretionary trust is when you look at your beneficiaries as being identified and you see that, okay, you know what, we have seen that this one has got this kind of husband or this kind of wife. Instead of us giving this one cash, let's rather pay whatever is required to be paid.
Right.
So coming to the example that we had in the previous video of a grandmother, where we are not giving grandmother because it's an income beneficiary some money, so we are saying we are going to pay for your, what are we saying, the grandmother is staying,
Yeah, the frail care.
the frail care.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
So in this case, then we can decide as trustees, because we see the situation that, okay, instead of us having to give this one because we have appointed her or him to be an income beneficiary, let's rather pay either whatever it is, whether it means he's going to school or whatever that beneficiary is doing. Then we pay towards that instead of giving the beneficiary some cash.
Amazing
Whereas
stuff.
in my example, then I was saying, in terms of your will, you are giving it directly to your child.
And they can squander that, all of that money, it's gone in
Even
6
if it's
months' time.
excluded, because again, yeah.
Yeah. My good friends, it's been great hanging out with you. But I almost want to say here, the ins and the outs of a trust also very much depends on how you have created your trusted. So it can alter significantly, or it can stay very much close to what we have just been talking about. What we spoke about right now is just the general governance. There's more to it, depending on how you've crafted it. Think of it this way. Driving a car, you just need a driver's license and you can drive a car. But now when your car is a sports car, there's no pedals there at the bottom. Everything is on the steering, right? So the difference in all of this that we're talking about really starts from the departure point of your trust deed, how you want it done. It's almost like to say a trust can be a unique as you are unique. In putting it together, how it can be run, obviously there's a guideline. And my friends, you can do this, anybody can do this. If you are serious about building, protecting your income and your businesses that you have. So until we meet again on the next video, I'm hoping that this is making sense. If you've got any questions, ask in the comments. We will cover them on the next videos. But over and above that, I cannot help you in creating a trust. Pateka can help you. She's the right person. Find your own Pateka. All right. Are we in agreement? Okay, sharp. We'll see you in the next video. It is I, your boy, TJ. Boom, boom.